I think that gives us a good chance to kick off our conversation with Tim Chapman, president at Advancing American Freedom, public policy advocacy organization that was founded by Vice President Mike Pence. And he is joining us now. You can find him on the X, and he is with us. Tim Chapman, welcome. Thanks for being on POTUS today.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
That sounds like a very Mike Pence reaction to something that would almost be expressed by Mike Pence, what Mike Hughes said.
No, I think the vice president was so proud of the hockey team and winning that gold medal, and all of us were. It was just a good feel-good moment for the country. So I think it's going to be great to see them at the State of the Union. I think it's going to be something that everybody will love to see, and we should be really proud.
I wanted to ask about the Supreme Court decision the other day on tariffs, because the former vice president had actually praised the Supreme Court's decision to strike down a lot of the administration's tariffs, which it seems to me is very consistent with the position he has taken over the many years, principled, conservative, et cetera. How did you view that, both his reaction and also the state of the Supreme Court decision?
Well, I think the Supreme Court got it right. I think it was a very interesting decision. You really had three blocks of votes on that Supreme Court. You had the liberal justices, you had three of the conservative justices who ruled against the president, you had three of the conservative justices who ruled for the president. So it's just a very interesting decision for court watchers. I think it's also important to note that it was a bipartisan decision. To the extent that bipartisanship is a thing, it really shouldn't be much of a thing on the Supreme Court. In a perfect world, there wouldn't be partisanship on the Supreme Court, but we don't live in a perfect world. And I think that it was nice to see that, and it really should give pause to folks on the left to say that the court is in the tank for the president, President Trump. The court is not, and the court ruled on the merits, and I thought that was a good ruling. Now, look, I think there's a couple things here. The policy, the underlying policy itself was extremely problematic. The tariffs were very unpopular, to the tune of probably underwater by about 30% in this country. In terms of approval of the tariff policy. And that was because the tariffs weren't working. They weren't, having their stated effect. The idea that tariffs would bring back a golden age in manufacturing. We just finished one of the worst years for manufacturing job losses in American history. And so that was a major problem right there on the policy. But then you zoom out from the policy and the repercussions on the economy, and you talk about the rule of law, and you say, well, what are tariffs actually? We view tariffs as a tax. A tariff is something that American importers, American businesses pay when they receive their goods from coming across the border. That comes out of Americans' pockets. And as the CBO just pointed out, 90% of the taxes or the tariffs that were applied over the last year were paid by Americans. And so that contributes to rising prices and whatnot. But if it is a tax, if it is in fact a tax, that is not the constitutional responsibility or power delegated to the president. That is a constitutional power delegated explicitly to the United States Congress. And so the Supreme Court recognized that and said, you know what? Regardless of the policy and whether it's a good policy or not, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the constitutional authority. And so if you want these kinds of tariffs, you have to find a constitutional way to implement these kinds of tariffs. So that's where we are now. I think it was a good decision, but this battle's far from over.
Tim Chapman with us, president at Advancing American Freedom. I was looking at the market today, and Friday the decision came down too late for the markets to react. And the reaction was, I think, to President Trump's, again, asserting that he will maintain his ability, although he'll be using a different power, if you will, to keep doing tariffs. The Dow down about 820 points today. NASDAQ was down 259 points. The S&P 500 down 72 points. Sounds like the market kind of agreeing with the position you're taking.
Yeah, because the market is looking at this and saying, here we go. Here's more uncertainty. It's really hard for businesses in this country to plan for a quarter ahead, 2 quarters ahead, a year ahead, when they don't know what the rules of the game are. And what the president is doing now is he's falling back on another authority that he thinks that he has that will be challenged in court again. Who knows if he's successful? Who knows if he's not successful? The authority that he's using now, something called Section 122, is an authority that that is supposed to run out in August, which means that it's a temporary measure anyway, which one would assume if it runs out in August, Congress would have to get engaged. Who knows what Congress is going to do? And of course, this just, to my point, this is more uncertainty for the United States economy. So the market's crashing and down to the tune of 800 points makes a lot of sense to me, because all people are looking for stability. And it's really a shame, because in many ways the president, I believe, was elected very clearly to bring back an economy that looks like the pre-COVID economy of 2019. He had a very good economy in 2019. And if you'll remember, in those years, he was very strategic in his application of tariffs. These weren't across-the-board tariffs. He used tariffs very strategically, specifically to try to corner China. And then he also passed a USMCA, a major trade bill with our allies, that we could have free trade with our allies. This worked. That economy really worked. And people elected this president to have that kind of economy. But now he's reverting to something that has always been in the back of his mind, which is that tariffs are just this wonderful tool. But he's just wrong about it at the end of the day. And the markets see that, and businesses see that. And that's why you're seeing a pulling back. And they really can't get out of their own way. If they would just, the administration, if they would back off and be more strategic and thoughtful about how they approach the tariff issue, I think they'd have an economy that's doing well. Because look, Tim, I mean, the economy is actually, in some respects, doing better than you would think given this tariff headwind. We have some good numbers and some good things to lean on here. And part of that is because he has done well. The president has done well on deregulation. The president has done well on keeping tax rates low. But the tariff stuff is just atrocious, and it's a massive headwind.
Tim, I appreciate you joining us. Tim Chapman, thanks for being on POTUS today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tim Chapman, president of